Recording? Okay, so I am going to film it and then put it onto the parent workshop wakelet, so it's going to be in Canvas, so if anyone isn't here needs to see it, or also if you have any questions and want to rewatch it later as well. I'm also going to be sharing the slides onto the wakelet as well, so that you can review them later. Basically the purpose of the session is just to give you more information about the CAT4 assessments that we do, and also to show you how the CAT4 assessments fit in with all the other assessments and the things that we do in primary as well, and to show you how we use them to support learning in the classroom as well.
Good morning.
I pressed record already, but you know.
I'll go now.
you might want to just, I don't know.
When you're being active and jumping around.
You know. Also, I'm going to show you just some screenshots of what the CAT4 look like, so that it's a bit less of a mystery about what your children have done. So I think it's important to start with our attitudes towards assessments at Britannica. First of all, we use assessments as a tool for learning, and grades at this point in primary are not important. That's something they worry about in secondary, when the grades are what is really important to get them into university. For us, it's all about progress. If we focus on progress, then the grades will come later. So our attitude towards assessment is that all children can and will succeed. They just need the right support and challenge to get them there. And that feedback is a really key component of learning. So the children need to know what they're doing well, what they need to improve, and assessment forms part of that. So it gives us information for us to pass on to the children. And we're confident that every child can and will improve. So there are two types of assessment, and I've kind of hinted at them already. There's assessment of learning, and there's assessment for learning. And if we think of our children as plants, it gives you a little bit more information about the differences between those two types of learning. So assessment for learning is assessment that has an impact on growth. So if we have the example of plants, if we take constant measurements of our plants, we give a little bit more water, we give a little bit more sun, we give a little bit more plant food, we make changes according to how well they are growing, then it has an impact on growth. And that is assessment for learning. We make lots of little adjustments throughout the children's time at school, and it has an impact on how well and how much they learn. Assessment of learning is just taking one measurement, how tall is the plant? Or taking one measurement of the children, what can they do? It tells us information about what they can and what they cannot do yet, but it doesn't have any impact on growth. It doesn't have any impact on learning. So obviously we prefer assessment for learning. Those small snapshots of what the children can do, and making adjustments to what we do as teachers, to the feedback we give to the children, so that the children learn better. And that's our kind of background, and the CAT4 fits into that as well. So this is some of the assessments that we do. If you've come to any other assessment and reporting workshops, you would have seen this before as well. So at the beginning, we do, in term 1, we do the NGRT, which is New Group Reading Test in English, and we do 2 writing assessments. We've already done one of these in September, so as a bit of a baseline to see how the children have done after the summer break, and also for new students to get a baseline of where they are currently at. And we do another checkpoint in late November, early December, so that's upcoming now. We're going to be doing another new group reading test. We're going to be doing another writing assessment, and We then will repeat that in term 2, and also then in term 3 we do the PTE. If you were here last year, you would know that that is the progress test in English, and that is a reading, comprehension and English skills assessment, and that is done from years 2 up to year 9. In maths, we do a Head Start assessment. We do 2 maths assessments in the first term. The reason for that is it's a long term. So we do one in September and another one at the end of November, beginning of December. And we do another maths assessment in the spring term, and in the summer term we get our end of year levels in May with a PTM or progress test in maths. We do regular, every fortnight mental maths tests. Again, the grades for these are not important. I know these go home as homework so that you can see the kinds of things your children will be doing in school, and you can see the kinds of vocabulary that the children are using in school, and you can see the kinds of areas where they are finding more difficult when the test goes home again afterwards. But progress is important, and the information we get from those assessments to see which individual child or as a class, which areas do we need to cover again because the children are finding it difficult. Those are the assessments for learning that we take in maths. We do other things like we do rubrics in science and topic, which is where we give like statements of what makes what's the next steps each time, so the children can self-assess their activities. And the CAT4 fits in there as well with year 3, and also new students from years 4 and above take CAT4 as well. We do data analysis. We've already done, if you remember, I was talking about assessment for learning. We constantly check in on our children's progress and their levels and what we need to be doing and what we need to be changing as teachers. So at the beginning of this year, we had a big data analysis staff meeting and had various follow-ups weekly in Key Stage meetings as well, and in our primary leadership team meetings. So we basically took all of the end-of-year assessments from last year, and we've looked for trends, we've looked for targets, we've looked for areas of strength that we need to keep on doing. We've looked at children who we really want to focus for intervention, children we really need to focus on for challenge, and we have made a plan for our year groups, for our classes, for individual children, and we did that back in the beginning of September. We have another checkpoint for mid-year review in January, which is the first week back after January. So we look at the term 1 assessments, and we decide, is everyone progressing as we would like, and if not, why not, and what do we need to do to make sure that they do make progress by the end of the year. And this is super useful because I was having a discussion on data with Mr. Phillips, and he identified a group of children who weren't making as much progress as he wanted in reading last year, and so he put various changes and interventions into place during term 2, and that by the end of the year he was delighted because they had made accelerated progress, but that was because of the analysis that we all did in January, and that he was able to spot children who weren't making the progress he wanted and make changes accordingly. At the beginning of term 3, we have another mid-year review to make sure that we are, if we need to do any more changes, and at the end of the year we do a data analysis as well to see look at the end of year levels and check in on all the progress for the year. Year 1 is slightly different in that at the beginning of year 1 we don't have a reception year, so some of our children coming into year 1 have English and phonics, and they have reading and writing skills, they have numeracy skills, and some do not. Some have English and some do not. And so they've come from a variety of different backgrounds. So So some of them are able to do a reading assessment, and some of them are just too early in their journey yet to do it.
Can I interrupt? The phonics baseline we do in year 2 and year 3 as well, and we do those same phonics assessments that are up there are also in years 2 and 3 because the children are coming from different places. Sorry.
Yeah, and then we set for phonics from year 1 until year 3 as well. Thank you. Everything else is pretty much the same, but there's much more of a phonics focus in year 1 as well, so I'll go too much more into that. And also the mental math starts later. So we assess in guided reading through questioning our children in lessons, from marking, from homework projects. We're assessing constantly, every lesson, every day, to get information about what the children can do and what they can't do yet. All right, moving on to the CAT4 then. What is the CAT4? So the CAT4 is the Cognitive Abilities Test, and it has 4 parts to it, hence the 4 in CAT4. The 4 parts are the verbal reasoning, which relates to knowledge about words, understanding about words, and relates to reading ability, writing ability, and language learning ability as well. Then we have the quantitative, which is about numbers, understanding about numbers and how they work in sequences, and that relates to maths. Then we have non-verbal, which relates to patterns and problem solving, and also spatial awareness, which it also relates to maths, but things like shape, space, but also it relates quite a lot to problem solving too. Those are the 4 different areas of the CAT4, and there are different sections within the assessment that tests each of these different things. So the CAT4 gives us information about the children's ability versus their attainment. So all of the other assessments I was showing you, like the NGRT, the New Group Reading Test, the PTE, the Progress Test in English, PTM, the Progress Test in Maths, all of those are testing what the children know, the skills that they have, the things that they have learned. That's what can be taught, whereas the CAT4 looks more at their potential, what they are capable of learning, so it's more of an ability test. So for the CAT4 there is no preparation at all, there's no revision that you can do. Whereas attainment testing tends to, you can review the things that you know already. Attainment testing tests skills and knowledge and things that you've acquired, whereas the ability assessment will be able to assess what your potential, regardless of what your previous schooling is. The ability test gives an indication of ability and potential to learn, and the attainment looks at what they have learned already. The CAT4 tends to be implemented at the beginning of the year, but also at the beginning of the key stage as well. So we have a CAT4 assessment at the beginning of year 3, at the beginning of year 7, and at the beginning of year 10. And this is because it gives you an indication of what the children's potential, that they are capable of learning later. Whereas attainment tests are often done at the end of the academic year to show what the children know, what they have learned so far. So like the IGCSEs and the A-levels, they're attainment tests, they're what the children know and the skills that they have. Ability tends to be more fixed, whereas attainment is changeable. But a word of caution with the ability test that we give in year 3 is that they are very much affected by their language level and to some extent their maturity and their engagement with the assessment. As children are older in year 7, they have the children we have in year 7 definitely have better language skills than some of our year threes, for example. But they also have that maturity for focus and to really engage with the assessment and do their best. In year three, we keep it all very low key. We don't want to stress our children. We don't want to upset them. We don't want them to think it's high stakes in any way and make them anxious. So some of them may just click through a little rather than take it quite as seriously as the year sevens. So there is a little word of caution with the year three assessments. They are quite engaging. We do ask the children to do their best. We do make the conditions available for them where it's silent. We're getting them into those kind of test conditions. But there is a little bit of a word of caution. And of course, as the children learn more English, their verbal ability is certainly not fixed. If they speak a different language to English at home, it takes years for them to reach the kind of native level for academic purposes. So certainly over time, then verbal ability will change. So what does the CAT4 look like? It's got some instructions like this. This is one of the instructions screens. There are headphones and it talks to the children. The teachers go through the instructions together as a class to make sure the children know what it is that they're going to do. This kind of format is not completely unfamiliar to them either because it's the same company, GL Assessments, that do the PTE and the NGRT as well. So this kind of format and on the computer, if they were here last year, it would be very familiar to them anyway. And first of all, we have to enter an access code, so the children will enter their code. It will take them straight through to their own assessment. It gives them information about of how to navigate within the assessment. So it tells them if you haven't done the question yet, it's white. If you've done it already, it's grey, and it's this kind of bluish colour. If that is the question that you're on already, to help them see where they are in the assessment. And it gives a time limit of 10 minutes. It's worth noting that it's extraordinarily rare for any child to take that full 10 minutes. It doesn't take that long. Usually they are waiting at the end of it, but it does cut off after 10 minutes. So occasionally children will take all of that time, but usually it doesn't. So at this point, we would wait till everyone was all logged on, and then we'll say, okay everyone, we'll get ready to start the test. There are some practice questions at the beginning, which the teachers also talk through to make sure the children know what it is that they have to do. So for example, in this practice question, there are 3 4-sided grey shaded shapes, and the children have to choose from these at the different options which other shape would fit into that pattern. So the children need to recognise that all of the 3 shapes have in common that they have 4 sides and that they are all grey coloured. So then they need to look down there to be able to see that there are 3 grey coloured, but then there's a circle and a triangle and they don't have 4 sides. And then there is a 4-sided shape, which is C, but that's white coloured. So they should then choose the one that fits the same pattern. And what we will do is get the children to choose one. We talk about why. This is because it's a practice question. We would talk about why D is the correct answer. And then we would move on to the next practice. Then we have this kind of thing as well. So again, we have a black semicircle and a striped semicircle that are touching at the corners, and the children need to choose which of the options also have the same pattern as well. So they should be able to recognise that there should be a black semicircle and a striped semicircle, but they also are E is there as well to help them to, we were talking through about why it's not E and why they touch at the tips with the flat edges facing. We talk about why that was the answer as opposed to E. It also gives them the chance to practice clicking on the correct answer with the mouse. It gives them the opportunity of noticing that when they have selected an answer, it changes, the border changes colour and it's slightly shaded. So we talk through why that, the process of answering the questions in the assessment too. Then we have, these are some of the kinds of questions that there are. You can see at the top there is a the countdown for the time limit as well. So the children then have to recognise the shaded versus unshaded. They have to recognise the different parts to this one. I think this was not from the Year 3 one though, I think it's maybe from the Year 7. Okay, this is another example. This was of the non-verbal reasoning. So here, there's a lot of words here in the practice, which could be daunting for a child who is still learning to read or is newer to English. But this is one of the practice questions, and it reads it all out to the children, and the teacher is also there with the class does this together. The actual assessment itself does not have all of these words and instructions in it. It's just for the practice part where they are supported. And so here they should be able to recognise that there's a big square on the left, and then there is a small square on the right. And then below the big square is a big circle. So from this, they should surmise that below the small square, there should be a small circle.
One question, is this text, they have to read it themselves, or the teacher guides them?
They have headphones and it reads it out to them, but there's also these are the practice questions, so the teacher will be have the whole class together and they'll go through the practice questions together, because it's important for us to talk about why D is the correct answer. So that they understand what to do in the rest of the assessment. The rest of the questions don't have all of these words. Anything to add about these ones?
No. It's really clear to them visually, so those words look daunting. But when those children see those, they're used to these sort of kind of problem-solving things. It's not the first time they've seen them. Any of the children, if they've come in Year 3, they might have done a CAT4 where they've come in anyway. So they're actually quite confident with those styles of questions. It's not like it's not like a test. It's a test environment. It's the fact that it's calm and it's relaxed and there's no talking. But it's not the way that you would remember doing your A-levels or your IB exams or your degree exams. It's very different to that. It's warm.
Yeah, it's more like a puzzle, so it's not scary. For this one, we have one arrow facing up on the left and 2 arrows facing up on the right, and then below there is 1 arrow facing down, and so they should then need to select which one it would be to be 2 facing down. Anyway, again we'll talk through which was right and why it is correct. And they would again notice that the question they have selected changes colour. For this one, we would talk about the top left has 3 arrows facing up, and then we would look at the one on the right and count that there are 6 arrows, and those ones are facing down. So then we would look at the circles, and we would make the connection that there are 3 circles above the line, there are 3 arrows above the line. So what do we think the bottom right would be? Well, there are 6 arrows below the line, so perhaps we would select one where there are 6 circles below the line. So we talk through the reasoning and why we know that that's the answer, why we think that's the answer, and then we would all click on it to check as well. When we're doing the practice questions, it tells you whether you got the answer correct or incorrect. When you're doing the assessment, the main part of the assessment, they don't know whether they've got it correct or not. So they feel successful anyway. Okay, again, so we've got, this is another example of one of the shaped ones. So we have a hexagon, triangle, square, hexagon, square, hexagon, and then they have to figure out what the missing shape in the bottom row is going to be a triangle, so they would click on the triangle. So, those are some of the kind of questions, the verbal ones on there actually. On the letter that you will get with the CAT4 assessments when your children bring home the parent report today, tomorrow?
Either today or tomorrow. It's getting prepared at the moment by the office.
So there's a parent guide inside to give you a bit more information, and there are some more examples of the verbal ones, which I thought I'd included on here, but I haven't. And it's basically the verbal questions is the same as the idea as the shapes. You would have different words, and they would have to notice the pattern between the words. So they might have, I don't know, autumn, summer, winter, and then you would have a whole bunch of words underneath. Like you might have weather, you might have Christmas, and you might have spring, and they have to then decide, okay, well the logical thing is all the others are seasons, so I need to choose another season to go with those ones. So that's the kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of closed sequences as well, so like sentences that are missing a word.
Yeah.
And so last night I played with and they would have underneath, they would have like dog, and then some things I don't know, what would you have? The apple, fish. And you say, right, I'll put the dog in there.
Yeah, thank you. How do we use the CAT4? So we use it to look to identify academic potential. It gives us some information if a child has exceptionally high, low ability, even ability, biased ability in different areas. Then it gives us extra information about how to support and challenge the children. It helps us to understand how they're thinking and gives us more information about the way in which they learn, so which is super useful for us. It helps us to know where support is extra support is necessary and what kind of support is going to be helpful as well. We get teacher reports. Which gives us lots of information as well about what we can do in the classroom, whereas the report you're going to get is more of a focus on what you can do at home. It helps us to set targets, particularly as the children move into secondary school. It gives predictions on what the children are going to get in their final exams. It gives them a prediction, but also an if challenge prediction as well, which obviously we were aiming for because we were trying to get them to reach the maximum of their potential. And this is a part of the secondary data analysis as well. They have to see how many students they've managed to get that if challenged or beyond kind of target. And it gives extra feedback, it gives extra information to everyone, to you, to us, and to the children themselves as well. It helps us to monitor trends over time. I'm going to show you a little bit about the kinds of things that the tracking that we do, and this gives an extra kind of element into our tracking and all the information that we collect about children. It gives a baseline of their potential at the beginning of the key stage or when they join us at Britannica. So this is the kind of information that we receive. This is a report, a group report for teachers, and it tells us the overall standardisation score for each of the different areas. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about what those scores mean. It tells us how many questions the children have attempted. It tells us their group rank as well within the year group. It tells us a percentile ranking as well. So we get lots of information about the children, and it also gives them an overall kind of ability score as well, which we're not as interested in. We're interested in the different areas, because that's what really gives us the information. It tells us in our cohort, in our year group, it tells us what our children are like compared to children nationally, and it tells us, like in this example, it will tell us that there are some children who are extremely high in different areas of ability, and then there's a quite a solid group who are extremely low in certain areas of ability, and it tells that will tell our teachers, well, we have to make sure that we really support and really challenge. We're going to have to make sure that we differentiate very carefully for our children to make sure that everyone is supported and challenged. The line that you can see is the typical bell curve as well. You would expect there to be more children who are average ability than at either end of the ability. It tells us information like this. So it tells us if there are any biases between verbal ability and spatial ability, which I will talk to you a bit more about in a minute. It does make a difference for how children learn, whether they have a verbal or a spatial bias, and how we support them. So it's important for us to see where the kind of biases are, and it tells us the kind of ability levels as well, boys versus girls as well. And this is quite useful as teachers. It gives us information about who has a bias for each of the different areas, and who we need to bear in mind when we are supporting and when we are planning our lessons, to make sure that that we give them the support that they need so they can fully reach their potential. So the children who have a very extreme verbal bias, that means that their verbal ability is high, whereas their spatial ability is quite low in comparison. Those children will really excel in written work. They might have high reading or writing ability. They may be very good at debate and discussion, for example. They may really like to learn through reading, writing, talking with a partner, and they might be quite good independently. They may be excelling at subjects where verbal ability is very important, like in English and literacy and language learning, for example. And they really might like to learn through a step-by-step kind of guide, but their spatial ability might be slightly, because their spatial ability is weaker, they might find it more difficult in other subjects where those skills are necessary, like say physics, design, maths and shape and space. They might find those kind of things a lot more difficult, and they also may find it more difficult to see the bigger picture and those kind of problem-solving activities. They may need to talk it through step by step, rather than just being able to see what the answers are. Because on the other end of the scale, with those with an extreme spatial bias, may actually they may actually be quite proficient in problem solving. They might see a problem in maths or science and just know what the answer is, and when you ask them, how did you get to that answer, how do you explain that, they might not be able to. They might not understand how they know, they just know it. And so they may not enjoy rote learning at all, and they might just not want to do all the steps that you've told them to do. They might just want to get to the answer and they just know what it is. They may excel in those kind of maths, physics, technology type of subjects, But they may actually find it those subjects where verbal ability is more important, like language learning and literacy and reading and things. They might find those a bit more difficult and be a bit more reluctant. They may be less, they're more reluctant to talk about how their steps and how they arrived at any answers as well. So we use the information in this way. So we actually have, this is from a while ago, but we still do this. So this tells us the assessment results that children get in the best baseline. So last year's end of May. Then it tells us the first term, we have 2 assessment checkpoints in the first term, and then there's a 3rd assessment checkpoint in term 2, and then there's the end of the end of the year assessment as well. What we will do is we will look at the verbal ability score, and we will compare it to their attainment. So for example, the first one here, there's a boy who got 82 as a standardised age score in his CAT4 verbal ability. When we look at his reading grade, he got 98. Now that means that that child, his ability may be a little lower, but his attainment is now higher. That means that he's got a lot of support. He's had a lot of support for phonics and reading, and he is actually now doing really well. Maybe he was EAL when he had the CAT4 assessment. Maybe his language skills have really improved since there, so his ability score his attainment score is now higher than his ability score. What we would also look at is any children who, for example, the boy third from the bottom, his verbal ability was 132. So he's got a very high verbal ability. However, his attainment for reading is 117, which is still high. However, it's not as high as his potential. So we would be looking at that boy and we would be saying, why is his ability higher than his attainment? What is it that we need to do, and what do we need to change to make sure that he can now achieve his potential, because he should be getting 132 in attainment if that's what his ability is. So we want him to at least be working at his ability level, but hopefully we're trying to push them beyond. So standardised age scores, what do they mean? So the standardised age score is basically the raw score, so how many the children got correct in the assessment, and then it's put through an algorithm where it adjusts for age in days and other factors, and it comes out with a score that goes from 69 to 141. And those numbers can then be compared. You can compare a year 3 standardised age score with a year 10 standardised age score, and it means the same thing. You can take a standardised age score from Britannica and someone in the UK, and it means the same thing. You can compare anybody. So most children, most anybody, is in the average range. So I think it's almost like 60% of people will be in the average range. Anything from 89 and to 111 is exactly where the children should be for their age. So when you look at your child's academic reports, if you're here last year, or if also if upcoming in December when we give home the academic reports, if your child is scoring 89 to 111, it's very likely they're just going to be getting the working at expectations tick on the report. If a child gets from 88 and below down to 74, that's slightly below average. Actually, quite a lot of our children, our younger children, are getting attainment scores that are below average because they come from so many different systems and different language levels as well.
They often make larger amounts of progress at the end of the year. Not always, but we're often seeing those where the big jumps are, especially children with language, but also sometimes children who are a little bit impulsive and are still growing in their maturity.
Yeah, definitely. And then very low ability would be below 74. We often find that children who get below 74 in verbal ability at our school is because they are still learning English, and also it can be because at year 3 a certain reading level is expected and phonics level is expected, but some of our children have come from different systems, that they have been focusing on building their language and vocabulary and things like that, and so they may not be quite at that level yet. So some of our children who are scoring below 74, we are not alarmed at all, and usually the verbal ability is the one that moves the most throughout their time here, because they naturally learn the language and the phonics and the literacy skills needed as well. On the other end, we have anything above 112. It would be considered high ability or above average, and very high would be above 126. So anything from 127 to 141, that's only 4% of children anywhere in the world, and that would be considered the very high ability range. We do have children who score in those areas as well. So this is the kind of information that you will receive on the CAT4 assessment. So the yellow band in the middle here, that is average. So that is the 89 to 111. So if your child's bar goes into that yellow band in the middle, that means that they are at age-related expectations. They're in their average ability kind of band. This particular student that is shown here has the verbal bar goes all the way to the end. That means that they have scored the maximum, which is 141 in verbal ability, but they are high ability in all of those columns, all of those different areas as well. Here are what some other ones look like. So you can see on this bottom one, then this child has a slightly greater spatial ability. So there's a slight bias for spatial ability in this profile here, but they are well into their average for verbal ability as well. So they will still be able to talk through their ideas and have that verbal ability as well. The one at the top is more of an even profile. They are slightly above average for their quantitative ability, so that might relate to their maths. They may enjoy maths slightly more, because children tend to enjoy subjects that they're good at. So this child may slightly more enjoy maths, particularly number, but they are an even profile really of average ability across each of the areas. The top one here is average in verbal, non-verbal and quantitative, but you can see that they have a very low spatial ability. So we would flag this child as they might find certain activities quite difficult, like in maths and shape and space, when they are maybe in art and design. They may be finding that visualizing and spatial awareness, they might be finding that quite difficult. But they also might find it quite difficult to see the bigger picture and to solve bigger problems. So in that case, they would, because they have and average verbal ability, we would definitely be using talk partners, we would be using step-by-step kind of instructions and guides. We would be using their verbal ability through reading and writing to help support them with their lower spatial ability.
And also, we would still maintain high expectations for them. It's when we see that the spatial ability is low, we're not, oh, well, they're not good at spatial stuff, we're not going to do that with them. That's not what we think. So we think about what steps are we going to put in place to support them with that.
So this is some of the information that you will have in the report as well. In primary, it's slightly less useful to have these most likely and if challenge scores, because these numbers here don't relate to the standardised age score. For some reason, the GL assessments have explained to me, and I've forgotten, is they've changed the numbers slightly, so they're not quite comparable to the standardised age score. So it's not quite as useful, but it does give you an indicator of the end of Key Stage 2. The ones for secondary are more useful because it gives you expected grades. If they're going to get a 9 or a 5 or a 3 in their maths IGCSE, it will tell you what the predicted grades are there. Slightly less useful for primary. Again. So this is the kind of information that you will get on the parent report. So there is the band that you get, and there is also this summary of advice for you to give you some insights into what how your child is thinking, what they're like as a learner, and some things that you can do to support them as well. This child may have scored a lower verbal ability. It might be because they are still learning English. It might be because they came to year 3 from a kindergarten, or they came into year 2 directly from a kindergarten and haven't caught up yet. It will say you may find reading difficult. In that case, that make sure that that she asks a teacher if anything is not clear, which would be the advice for anybody of any level at any time. Always ask for help if you're not clear on something. And it will be useful for this child to have diagrams to help support and to look at visual clues to support their lower verbal ability. You would do that through pictures and diagrams and flowcharts and things like that as well. It says that the child may not be able to talk through the steps that they took to solve a problem, which is why it might be useful for you to model talking through the steps to help them to learn how to do that, because it's going to be a useful skill for them to have for their thinking. This child is evenly balanced, so that means that their verbal and their spatial ability are fairly close to each other. Often they will give advice like reading a large range of books, for example, and building on abilities at school, some kind of clubs and ECAs that they might benefit from participating in as well. If the child has a high ability in some areas, it might highlight that they might finish activities quickly. Hopefully they shouldn't, because we differentiate, but if they do, they should make sure that they tell a teacher and make them aware. Children with high spatial abilities get, as I said earlier, they may just know the answer to a problem. They see the answer very quickly, but for a child who sees the answer very quickly, you might have to tell them to wait, slow down, don't rush, and don't miss important detail. This is another evenly balanced profile. Again, it's saying develop verbal skills by reading widely and looking at subject-specific vocabulary. So sometimes it starts to look ahead for the next key stage and looking at into secondary as well. Often the advice is things like writing notes or using pictures to support thinking as well. This one shows more of a verbal, a higher verbal ability. And so if a child is struggling with something, then talking through, working through step by step is definitely going to help, because that will support their higher verbal ability. They might find it a little harder to see the bigger picture because their spatial ability is slightly lower. So again, using pictures and diagrams and things to support them would be useful. And they may find it difficult for some spatial activities, mapping skills, those kind of things, where higher spatial ability is needed. Okay, so just to summarise then, all children will take this an ability test in year 3 and at the beginning of each key stage, because it gives us information about the children's potential, their capabilities, and it interacts with other assessments that we do about attainment as well. So we use the information to track our children, to give us ideas for how to support the children, to give us more information about what they are like as learners. But you get the parent report as well, so that you can also have that kind of information to help you understand your child as a learner and what you can do to support them at home. Any questions?
Alright. You have good skills. I always puzzled with the acronyms, but I guess there will be some kind of explanation to do with the...
Yeah, so you're going to get a 4-page letter later today, I hope. If not, tomorrow. I'm very, very sorry. The first page is a specific explanation about
like a glossary of all the, what is ability, what is attainment, what is SAS is standardised age score.
CAT, yeah, no, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much for coming.
How do I press stop?
Oh, you press the red button.
Press the red button.
No, not that red button, that one.
Oh my gosh.